The first time I realized I was in love with Elijah Harper was during our senior year of high school. We were sitting on the hood of his beat-up Corolla at Sunset Point, legs dangling over the edge, the whole town sprawled beneath us like a circuit board of tiny lights. It was nothing special, just another Friday night in a long parade of Friday nights we'd spent together. But when he laughed at something I said, his head tipping back to reveal the long line of his throat, something inside me cracked open. I remember thinking, this is a problem. 5 years later, it still is. Earth to Noah. You in there? I blink, refocusing on the stack of bills spread across our kitchen table. Elijah is waving a hand in front of my face, his expression caught between amusement and concern. Sorry, I mumble, running a hand through my hair. Zoned out. Yeah, no kidding. You've been staring at the electric bill for like 5 minutes. He slides into the chair opposite me, pushing a mug of coffee in my direction. Here, you look like you need this more than I do. Our fingers brush as I take the mug. It's nothing, an accidental touch, the kind that happens a dozen times a day when you share 900 square feet with another person. But I still feel the contact like a static shock. Thanks, I say, pulling my hand back a little too quickly. Elijah doesn't seem to notice. He never does. So what's the damage this month? He asks, nodding at the bills. I clear my throat, forcing myself to focus on numbers rather than the way morning light catches in his dark hair. Not bad, actually. We're under budget if we skip takeout this weekend. No way, he protests, leaning back in his chair. The movement pulls his white t-shirt taut across his chest. I've been dreaming about pad thai from Siam Palace all week. You're the one who wanted to save for that trip to Montreal, I remind him, though I'm already weakening. I've never been good at denying him anything. Come on, Noah, he wheedles, flashing that crooked smile that's been my undoing since 10th grade. One night of takeout isn't going to bankrupt us. I sigh, pretending to be more annoyed than I am. Fine, but you're paying the tip. Deal. His smile widens into something victorious. And you're watching that documentary about deep-sea creatures with me tonight. The one with the freaky anglerfish? Hard pass. Please? He nudges my foot under the table. I don't want to watch it alone. You know I get nightmares. You're 24, I point out, fighting my own smile. And still scared of the ocean. Sue me. I shake my head, but we both know I'll end up watching it with him. That's how it's always been. Elijah asks, I pretend to resist. Then I give in, a choreography we've perfected over a decade of friendship. Friendship. The word sits like a stone in my chest. I've been carrying this weight for so long that most days I hardly notice it anymore. The wanting has become background noise, like the hum of appliances or the sound of traffic outside our window. But sometimes, like now, watching him drum his fingers against the table while he scrolls through his phone, it rises to a deafening roar. Hey, he says suddenly, not looking up. Did you see Mia's Instagram post? Looks like she's dating that bartender from O'Malley's. Good for her, I reply, hoping I sound normal. Mia is Elijah's most recent ex-girlfriend. They dated for 3 months last year before she ended things, calling him emotionally unavailable. He pretended not to care, but I found him getting drunk alone on our fire escape the night after she left. Yeah, he says, still scrolling. Good for her. There's something in his voice I can't quite read. Regret? Relief? After all these years, I should be better at deciphering his moods, but there are still parts of Elijah that feel utterly foreign to me. Secret rooms I've never been invited to enter. He glances up, catching me watching him. For a brief moment, his expression shifts into something unguarded, something that makes my heart slam against my ribs, but then it's gone, replaced by his usual easy grin. Speaking of dating, he says, how's it going with that guy from your lit class, the one with the glasses? I take too large a sip of coffee, scalding my tongue. Julian, we're just study partners. Really? Because he looked at you like you were the last slice of pizza at 2 a.m. when I picked you up last week. I roll my eyes to cover my discomfort. Can you stop trying to matchmake me with every guy who knows the difference between your and your? I'm just saying, Elijah shrugs. It's been what, 8 months since you and David broke up? You should get back out there. David, my ex. The relationship had been doomed from the start. I knew it even as I nodded along to Elijah's enthusiastic endorsement. He seems really into you, Noah, and he's not bad looking. If you're into that whole I work at a startup and own too many plants vibe. What I couldn't explain to Elijah was that David never stood a chance. Not when every time we kissed, I found myself wondering if Elijah's lips would feel different. Not when every morning I woke up next to David, I felt a stab of guilt for wishing he was someone else. I'm focusing on school right now, I say finally. Not everyone needs to be dating someone all the time. Fair enough. He holds up his hands in surrender, just trying to help. I know, I say, softer now. Because I do know, Elijah loves me, just not in the way I want him to, and that isn't his fault. He stands, stretching his arms above his head. The movement exposes a sliver of skin above his pajama pants, a glimpse of hip bone and taut stomach that I force myself not to stare at. I'm gonna shower, he announces. We still on for movie night tonight? I nod, unable to trust my voice. Cool. You're the best, Noah. He ruffles my hair as he passes, a brotherly gesture that nonetheless sends electricity down my spine. I listen to his footsteps retreat down the hall, the bathroom door closing behind him. A moment later, the shower starts running. I allow myself exactly 10 seconds to picture him under the spray of water, rivulets running down his shoulders, before I shut down that train of thought. I've gotten good at this, at redacting my own imagination, at censoring the wanting. Most days, I remember that I'm lucky. I have Elijah in my life. We share an apartment, a Netflix account, years of inside jokes and memories. It should be enough. But some nights, lying awake in my room, listening to him breathing just one thin wall away, I can't help but wonder what it would be like to have more. To trace the line of his jaw with my fingertips instead of just my eyes. To know if he sighs into kisses or if he laughs when he's happy. I gather the bills into a neat stack, trying not to notice how my hands shake slightly. 5 years of practice, and I still haven't mastered the art of loving Elijah from a distance. This is ridiculous, I mutter, squinting at my laptop screen. How am I supposed to write a 10-page analysis of a poem that's only 14 lines long? It's just after 10 p.m., and our living room has transformed into the usual disaster zone of midterm season. Books splayed open on every surface, empty coffee mugs multiplying like rabbits, and me, cross-legged on the couch, glaring at a blank document. Elijah looks up from his spot on the floor, where he's surrounded by engineering textbooks that make my literature assignments seem like children's stories. You're overthinking it, he says. Just write something about, I don't know, the juxtaposition of life and death or whatever. It's a sonnet about unrequited love, not existential dread. Even better, he grins. You can write about longing and suffering. That's at least 8 pages right there. If only he knew how familiar I am with the subject. I sigh, closing my laptop. I need a break. My brain feels like it's been put through a blender. Same, Elijah agrees, rubbing his eyes. I've been staring at these equations so long, they're starting to look like hieroglyphics. He checks his watch. It's not even that late. Want to watch something mindless for a while? What about your deep-sea documentary? He wrinkles his nose. Nah, I'm too tired to be terrified tonight. Let's watch something we've seen before. 20 minutes later, we're halfway through an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine we've both seen at least 3 times. I'm trying to focus on the familiar jokes, but all I can think about is how Elijah's shoulder presses against mine, warm and solid. We started at opposite ends of the couch, like we always do. But somehow, as the episode progressed, the space between us disappeared. This happens more often lately. This gravitational pull that seems to draw us together when we're not paying attention. Cold? Elijah asks, noticing my slight shiver. Before I can answer, he's reaching for the throw blanket draped over the armchair. He unfurls it over both of us, the action pulling us even closer together. Now our thighs are touching too, a line of contact from knee to hip that feels like a live wire. "Better?" he asks, his voice oddly soft. I nod, not trusting myself to speak. On screen, something explodes. Someone makes a joke. I absorb none of it. Instead, I'm hyper-aware of Elijah's breathing, the way it seems to slow as the episode continues. The weight of his body gradually leans more heavily into mine. By the time the credits roll, his head has dropped onto my shoulder, and I realize he's fallen asleep. This isn't unusual. Elijah can fall asleep anywhere, in cars, at parties, once even standing up at a concert. But something about tonight feels different. Something about the way his body curls toward mine, like a plant seeking sunlight. I should wake him. I should gently extract myself and suggest we both get some proper rest in our own beds. But I remain frozen, afraid that the slightest movement might shatter this fragile moment. His breath is warm against my neck. His hair smells like the rosemary shampoo we both use, because we've long since stopped bothering to buy separate toiletries. His hand rests inches from mine on the blanket, close enough that I can see the small scar on his knuckle from when he punched a wall in college after his dad called to say he wouldn't make graduation. I know Elijah better than I know myself sometimes. I know he hates cilantro but loves coriander, not realizing they're the same plant. I know he sleeps with 2 pillows and always kicks off his socks during the night. I know he calls his mom every Sunday and pretends it's out of duty, when really it's the highlight of his week. And yet there are still mysteries, like why he sometimes looks at me with an expression I can't decipher, or why he's never stayed with any girlfriend for longer than 4 months, or why, lately, he seems to find excuses to touch me. Casual, fleeting contacts that could mean everything or nothing at all. The episode autoplays into the next. Elijah stirs slightly but doesn't wake. His head shifts, nuzzling deeper into the crook of my neck. I feel his lips, slightly parted in sleep, brush against my collarbone. My heart is a trapped bird in my chest. I wonder if he can feel it beating through my skin. This doesn't mean anything, I remind myself. He's asleep. He doesn't know what he's doing. And even if he did, Elijah is straight. He's my best friend. He's the one constant in my life that I can't afford to lose, even if it means carrying this ache until it calcifies inside me. But God, what I wouldn't give to turn my head just slightly, to press my lips to his forehead, to slide my fingers into his hair, and gently wake him with a touch he couldn't possibly misinterpret. Instead, I remain still, barely breathing, as another episode plays unwatched. I memorize the weight of him against me, knowing I'll replay this moment later when I'm alone. Eventually, well past midnight, I force myself to gently shake his shoulder. "Elijah," I whisper, "wake up, let's go to bed." He makes a small sound of protest, burrowing closer for a moment before his eyes flutter open. There's a moment, brief but unmistakable, when he looks at me with something like wonder. Then, awareness floods back, and he pulls away, rubbing his face. "Shit, sorry," he mumbles, voice thick with sleep. "What time is it?" "Almost 1, I say, immediately missing his warmth as he puts distance between us. "We both crashed." He yawns, stretching his arms above his head. "Your paper can wait until tomorrow," I finish. "Come on, we should get some real sleep." We move through our nighttime routine in comfortable silence, turning off lights, locking the door, brushing our teeth side by side at the bathroom sink. This part has always been easy, the domestic choreography we've perfected over years of cohabitation. But tonight, as we stand shoulder to shoulder in front of the mirror, something shifts. Our eyes meet in the reflection, and instead of quickly looking away as usual, Elijah holds my gaze. There's a question in his eyes that I don't dare interpret. A drop of water clings to his lower lip. Without thinking, I reach up and brush it away with my thumb. Time stops. My hand freezes, still touching his face. His eyes widen slightly, pupils dilating. Neither of us breathes. Then the moment breaks. I pull my hand back as if burned, mumbling an apology. Elijah clears his throat, suddenly fascinated by the process of rinsing his toothbrush. "Good night," he says finally, voice strangely tight. Don't stay up all night overthinking that sonnet. I won't, I lie. We both know I will. He hesitates in the doorway, looking like he wants to say something else, but then he just nods, disappearing down the hall to his bedroom. I stare at my reflection after he's gone, searching my own face for signs of the turmoil inside me. I look the same as always, maybe a little tired around the eyes, a little too pale. Nothing to suggest that I'm slowly being hollowed out by wanting something I can't have. In bed, I stare at the ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of Elijah moving around in his room on the other side of the wall. The creak of his bed as he settles in. The soft click of his lamp turning off. Then silence, except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional siren wailing in the night. I've trained myself to ignore how I feel, but I can't unfeel it anymore. The thought surfaces unbidden, a truth too persistent to deny. 5 years of careful compartmentalization, of reminding myself that friendship is enough, of dating other people in half-hearted attempts to move on. And I'm still here, aching for someone who sees me as nothing more than his best friend. Sleep eludes me. Hours pass, marked only by the changing numbers on my digital clock. 1:37, 2:15, 2:48. Just after 3 a.m., I hear Elijah's door open. Soft footsteps pad down the hall. The bathroom light clicks on briefly, then off again. I expect to hear him return to his room, but instead, there's a gentle knock on my door. Noah? His voice is barely above a whisper. You awake? I consider pretending to be asleep, but something in his tone makes me sit up. Yeah, I call softly. Everything okay? He doesn't answer immediately. Then, slowly, the door opens. Elijah stands in the threshold, a silhouette outlined by the faint light from the street outside. He's wearing only boxers and a thin t-shirt, his usual sleeping attire, but something about seeing him in my doorway at this hour makes my mouth go dry. Can't sleep, he says simply. I shift over and bait, making room without being asked. This isn't entirely unprecedented. We've shared beds before on trips when hotel rooms had only one king instead of two queens, or during power outages in winter when his room got too cold. But those were practical situations. This feels different. He hesitates for a heartbeat, then crosses to my bed and slides under the covers. The mattress dips under his weight. He lies on his back, careful to leave space between us, but I can feel the heat radiating from his body. Bad dream? I ask, trying to normalize the situation. No, he says. Then, after a pause, just thinking too much. About what? Everything. Nothing. He turns his head to look at me, his profile sharp against the darkness. Does it ever feel like your mind won't shut up? All the time, I admit. How do you make it stop? I shrug, though I'm not sure he can see the gesture in the dark. I don't know if you can. You just learn to live with the noise, I guess. He makes a soft sound that might be agreement. For a while, we just lie there, staring at the ceiling, breathing in tandem. The space between us feels charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. Noah, he says finally, his voice so quiet, I almost don't hear it. Can I ask you something? My heart rate doubles. Of course. How did you know, he asks, that you were gay? The question catches me off guard. We've talked about my sexuality before, when I came out in high school, when I started dating guys in college. But never like this, never in hushed tones in the middle of the night with barely a foot of space between us. I just knew, I say carefully. It wasn't a sudden realization, more like gradually accepting something that had always been true. He's quiet for so long that I wonder if he's fallen asleep. Then he shifts slightly, turning onto his side to face me. But was there a moment when you couldn't deny it anymore? I think about telling him the truth, that the moment was with him because of him. But I can't risk it. Not when I don't know where this conversation is leading. I guess, I say instead, it was the first time I fell in love, when I realized that what I felt wasn't just admiration or friendship or some passing phase. It was bigger than that. Undeniable. Elijah's breathing has grown slightly faster. I can feel it, warm against my shoulder. And how did it feel? He whispers. Falling in love? Terrifying, I admit, like jumping off a cliff with no idea how far the drop is. But also, inevitable. Like gravity. He makes a small sound that might be acknowledgement. His hand moves under the covers, and for one wild, heart-stopping moment, I think he might reach for me. But he just clutches the edge of the blanket more tightly. Noah, he says, my name like a prayer on his lips. I need to tell you something. Time seems to crystallize around us. The room holds its breath. I turn to face him, our faces now inches apart on adjacent pillows. In the dim light filtering through my curtains, I can just make out his features. The slope of his nose, the curve of his mouth, his eyes wide and uncertain. What is it? I ask, barely audible. He swallows hard enough that I can hear it. Then, after what feels like an eternity, if I kissed you right now, would you stop me? The world stops spinning. The question hangs in the air between us, impossible and world-altering. I search his face for signs that this is a joke, a misunderstanding, anything but what it seems to be. But all I see is vulnerability and fear and something else, something that mirrors the feeling I've been carrying for 5 long years. My voice catches in my throat. My heart pounds so loudly, I'm certain he can hear it. And as I open my mouth to respond, everything I've ever wanted hovering on the edge of becoming real. If I kissed you right now, would you stop me? The question hangs between us like suspended time. My breath catches, trapped in my lungs. 5 years of careful distance, of redirected glances, of practiced nonchalance, all of it collapsing in the space of 8 whispered words. I search Elijah's face in the dim light, looking for any sign that this is a joke or a dream. But his eyes are serious, vulnerable in a way I've rarely seen them. The pulse in his throat flutters visibly. Elijah. My voice breaks on his name. I shouldn't have said anything, he says quickly, already retreating. He starts to roll away. Forget it. I'm sorry. My hand reaches out before I can think, catching his shoulder. Wait! He freezes, not turning back, but not pulling away either. I wouldn't, I whisper. Wouldn't what? Stop you! The words feel enormous in my mouth, too big to release into the world, but I say them anyway. I wouldn't stop you! Slowly, so slowly it feels like time itself has stretched thin, he turns back toward me. His expression is unreadable, fear and hope and confusion all tangled together. The inches between us on the mattress feel simultaneously vast and microscopic. Are you sure? He asks, voice barely audible. I'm not sure of anything except the thundering of my heart and the knowledge that whatever happens next will irreversibly change us. But I nod anyway. He shifts closer, close enough that I can feel his breath on my face, warm and slightly minty from toothpaste. His hand hovers uncertainly before coming to rest against my cheek, fingers trembling slightly. The first brush of his lips against mine is so gentle it's almost not a kiss at all, just a question, a possibility hanging in the charged air between us. Then, as if making a decision, he presses forward more firmly. His lips are softer than I imagined, and God, how I've imagined. The kiss is hesitant, unpracticed between us, noses bumping slightly, both of us too afraid to move beyond this careful press of mouth against mouth. When we break apart, neither of us speaks. Elijah's expression is dazed, eyes wide and searching. I'm certain my face mirrors his shock. I've wanted to do that for... He starts, then stops, as if unsure how to finish the sentence. A distant siren wails somewhere outside, the sound filtering through my blinds along with the blue-tinged streetlight. The familiar backdrop of the city at night makes this moment feel both surreal and strangely ordinary, as if we've crossed into an alternate universe that looks exactly like our own, but isn't. How long? I ask, my voice unfamiliar to my own ears. He shakes his head slightly. I don't know. I don't know anything right now. His fingers still rest against my cheek, warm and slightly calloused. Is that okay? It's okay, I assure him, though I'm not sure it is. Not when my entire body feels like it might shatter from wanting more while simultaneously being terrified of what comes next. We lie there facing each other, neither making a move to kiss again, but neither pulling away either. Eventually, Elijah's breathing deepens and slows. His hand slips from my face to rest on the mattress between us, fingers just barely touching mine. I watch him sleep, memorizing the way his eyelashes fan against his cheeks, the slight part of his lips, the tiny scar above his right eyebrow from a childhood accident I wasn't present for, but have heard the story of 100 times. Sleep eludes me entirely. My mind spins with questions I'm afraid to answer. What happens in the morning? What does this mean to him? Is this curiosity, experimentation, or something more, and most terrifying of all? Could this be everything I've wanted? And what if I ruin it? Dawn creeps slowly into the room, gray light gradually replacing the darkness. With each passing minute, the night feels less real, more like a fever dream I might have conjured from years of suppressed longing. When Elijah's alarm goes off in his room down the hall, he stirs, eyes fluttering open. For one suspended moment, as awareness returns to him, I see confusion, then recognition, then, most devastating of all, panic. He sits up abruptly, running a hand through his sleep-mussed hair. I should... He gestures vaguely toward the door, already swinging his legs over the side of the bed. Elijah! I say, my voice still rough with sleeplessness. I have that early class, he says, not meeting my eyes. And then work. I'll probably be late tonight. Before I can respond, he's gone, the door clicking shut behind him. A moment later, I hear the bathroom door close, the shower turning on. I lie back, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of reality settle over me like a lead blanket. Last night happened. The kiss happened. And now, in the harsh light of morning, Elijah is retreating faster than I can process. The apartment is empty when I finally drag myself out of bed. No note, no text, just the lingering scent of Elijah's cologne in the bathroom and a half-empty coffee mug in the sink. I move through the day in a fog, attending classes I barely register, responding to conversations on autopilot. My phone remains stubbornly silent, though I check it every few minutes, hoping for something, anything from Elijah. By evening, I've convinced myself that last night was a mistake we're both going to pretend never happened. It's the logical conclusion, the path of least resistance back to the friendship that has defined most of my life. I'm setting the table for a dinner I'm not hungry for when I hear his key in the lock. My hands freeze, plate suspended midair as the door swings open. Elijah steps inside, looking as exhausted as I feel. There are shadows under his eyes, his usually easy posture tense and guarded. He hovers in the entryway, jacket still on, as if unsure of his welcome in the apartment we've shared for 3 years. Hey, he says finally, the word inadequate for the weight it carries. Hey, I echo, setting down the plate with exaggerated care. There's pasta if you're hungry. He nods but makes no move toward the kitchen. Thanks. The silence stretches between us, filled with everything we're not saying. I busy myself with the mundane task of pouring water, desperate for something to do with my hands. Noah, he says finally, voice tight. About last night. We don't have to talk about it, I interrupt, unable to bear what I'm certain comes next. The gentle letdown, the careful distancing, the inevitable withdrawal. It's fine. It was late. We were tired. These things happen. The lie tastes bitter on my tongue, but I'd rather swallow it than hear him say he regrets it. Right, he says after a pause. These things happen. He finally shrugs off his jacket, hanging it by the door with mechanical precision. When he passes me on his way to his room, he maintains a careful distance, as if afraid we might accidentally touch. I'm not really hungry, he says over his shoulder. I think I'll just turn in early. I nod, not trusting my voice. When his door clicks shut, I abandon all pretense of dinner, dumping the pasta I spent an hour preparing into the garbage. This, I think bitterly, is exactly why I buried these feelings for 5 years. Because losing Elijah's friendship is unthinkable. because the awkwardness now filling our apartment like poisonous gas is worse than any unrequited longing. Because having a taste of what could be, only to have it withdrawn, hurts more than never having it at all. 3 days pass in a careful dance of avoidance. We communicate in notes left on the refrigerator and text about household necessities. When we do occupy the same space, conversation remains firmly in safe territory. Classes, work, the weather, anything but the kiss that has erected invisible walls between us. On the 4th day, I come home from campus to find a pile of Elijah's clean laundry on the couch. He must have done it before leaving for his afternoon lab and forgotten to put it away. Without thinking, I begin to fold it, a habit born from years of domestic familiarity. My hands remember the motions, the crisp fold of t-shirts the way he prefers them, the pairing of socks that always seem to be missing their matches. It's only when I pick up his favorite gray hoodie, the one he's had since sophomore year of high school, soft with wear and smelling faintly of his deodorant, that something breaks inside me. My hands begin to tremble, clutching the fabric like it's the only solid thing in a spinning world. This is what we're risking. Not just the occasional kiss or the possibility of something more, but this, the comfortable intimacy of knowing which shirts he loves and which socks he hates, the right to touch his belongings with the casual ownership of someone who belongs in his life. I'm still sitting there, folded laundry in neat piles around me, and his hoodie clutched to my chest, when the door opens. Elijah freezes in the entryway, eyes moving from my face to the hoodie in my hands. Something flickers across his expression, too complex to name, gone before I can decipher it. "Sorry," I say quickly, setting down the hoodie. "I was just—" "It's fine." He cuts me off, but his voice is softer than it's been in days. "Thanks for folding it." He crosses to the couch, carefully gathering the stacks of clothes. Our fingers brush when he takes the hoodie, and neither of us pulls away immediately. It's the first time we've touched since that night, and even this small contact sends electricity up my arm. "Noah," he says quietly, still not moving away. "We need to talk." The 4 most terrifying words in the English language. I nod anyway, steeling myself for whatever comes next. He sets the laundry aside and sits beside me on the couch, leaving careful space between us. For a long moment, he stares at his hands, seemingly gathering his thoughts. "I've been avoiding you," he says finally, "and that's not fair. Not after what happened." "It's okay," I say automatically. "You don't owe me anything." He looks up sharply. "Don't do that. Don't make this easier for me when I'm the one who—" He breaks off, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I kissed you. I started this. And then I ran away like a coward." "You were confused," I offer, trying to give him the out he seems to need. "I still am," he admits, "but that's not an excuse for how I've been acting." Outside, rain begins to fall, pattering gently against the windows. The apartment grows dimmer as clouds obscure the evening sun, but neither of us moves to turn on a light. "I don't know what I am," Elijah continues after a long pause, voice barely audible above the rain. "I've never felt this way about a guy before. About anyone, really." He swallows hard. "But I know I've never felt safer than when I'm next to you." The words hit me like a physical force. I dig my fingers into the couch cushion to keep from reaching for him. "I'm not asking you to figure everything out right now," I say carefully. "These things take time. And if you decide that kiss was a mistake, or just curiosity, or—" "It wasn't a mistake," he interrupts, his voice suddenly fierce. "That's the problem, Noah. It wasn't a mistake at all." Our eyes meet in the dim light, and something shifts in the air between us, the same electric charge I felt that night in my bed, but stronger now, more deliberate. Elijah moves first, closing the careful distance he maintained, until our knees touch. His hand comes up to my face, hesitant but determined. "Can I?" he begins, but I'm already nodding, already leaning forward. This kiss is different from our first. Where that one was tentative, questioning, this one has purpose. His lips are more certain against mine, hand curling around the back of my neck to draw me closer. I respond with 5 years of carefully restrained wanting, my fingers tangling in his hair, body surging toward his like a tide finally breaking against the shore. The kiss deepens, mouths opening, breath mingling. Elijah makes a soft sound in the back of his throat, surprised, pleased, that vibrates through me like a current. His hands move restlessly from my neck to my shoulders to my back, as if he can't decide where to touch, as if every point of contact is both too much and not enough. When we finally break apart, we're both breathing hard. His pupils are dilated, lips slightly swollen. I've never seen anything more beautiful in my life. Okay, he says shakily. Definitely not a mistake. A laugh bubbles up in my chest, half joy and half disbelief. No, I agree. Not a mistake. He smiles then, the first real smile I've seen from him in days, and leans his forehead against mine. We stay like that for a moment, sharing breath, the world narrowed to the points where our bodies connect. I don't know what happens next, he admits. I don't have a roadmap for this. Neither do I say truthfully, because for all my years of wanting, I never actually allowed myself to imagine a scenario where Elijah wanted me back. It seemed too dangerous, too painful to hope for. I'm scared, he whispers, the confession barely audible. Not of this, he gestures between us, but of ruining what we already have. You're my best friend, Noah. I can't lose that. You won't, I promise, though I share his fear. No matter what happens, you won't lose me. He nods, but uncertainty lingers in his eyes. What if this doesn't work? What if I'm not enough? The question contains multitudes. What if I'm not gay enough? What if I'm not sure enough? What if I'm not brave enough? You've always been enough, I tell him, meaning it more than any words I've ever spoken. Since we were 15. You've always been everything. He kisses me again then, softer this time, a gentle press of lips that feels like gratitude. When he pulls back, there's a new resolve in his expression. I need to figure some things out, he says. About myself. About what I want. Can you give me that? Of course, I say, though part of me wants to cling to this moment, afraid that given time to think, he'll retreat again. Whatever you need. He nods, squeezing my hand once before standing. I'm going to go for a walk. Clear my head a bit. It's raining, I point out. A ghost of his usual grin appears. I know, I like the rain. After he leaves, I sit in the growing darkness, lips still tingling, heart beating an unfamiliar rhythm. Hope and fear war within me, neither gaining the upper hand. For the first time in 5 years, I allow myself to want openly, without restraint or guilt. It's terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure, like stepping off a cliff and discovering you might have wings after all. The next 2 weeks unfold in a strange new reality. Elijah, Tio, and I circle each other carefully, both testing boundaries neither of us fully understands. There are moments of breathtaking intimacy, his hand finding mine under the table during dinner, my fingers tracing the line of his jaw as we watch TV, kisses stolen in the hallway between classes. But there are also moments of painful uncertainty, conversations that cut off abruptly, touches that withdraw too quickly, nights spent in separate beds despite the magnetic pull between us. We don't put a name to what we're doing. We don't tell our friends. We exist in a bubble of possibility that feels both fragile and necessary. And then, on a Tuesday night just like any other, everything falls apart. My sister called, Elijah says casually as we wash dishes side by side. She's coming to visit next weekend. That's great, I reply, genuinely pleased. I've always liked Mia, who shares her brother's quick wit, but none of his reservations. It's been what, 6 months? About that. He hands me a plate to dry. She wants to meet for dinner Friday. Thought maybe you could join us. Of course. I stack the plate in the cabinet. Any particular reason for the visit? He shrugs, too casually. She's bringing her new boyfriend. Wants my approval, I guess. The mysterious Jake from accounting, I say, remembering the name from previous conversations. Yeah. Elijah is suddenly very focused on scrubbing a pot that doesn't appear particularly dirty. She, also asked if I was seeing anyone. My hands go still on the dish towel. What did you tell her? Nothing. he says quickly. I said no because we're not. He stops, frustrated. What would I even say? Oh, I'm kind of making out with my roommate, who happens to be my best friend and also a guy, but we haven't actually defined anything yet. The words sting more than they should. Right, I say, trying to keep my voice even. Because that would be ridiculous. He must hear something in my tone, because he turns to look at me, soap suds clinging to his forearms. Noah, I didn't mean... It's fine, I cut him off. We haven't defined anything. That's accurate. But it came out wrong, he insists. I just meant, what did you mean, Elijah? I ask, setting down the towel. Because it's been 2 weeks of whatever this is, and I still have no idea what you want from me. His expression hardens slightly. That's not fair. I told you I needed time to figure things out. And have you figured things out? The question comes out more challenging than I intended. He turns back to the sink, shoulders tense. It's not that simple. Actually, it is, I counter, a tide of suppressed frustration finally breaking. Either you want this or you don't. Either you want me or you don't. Of course I want you, he snaps, spinning back around. But it's not just about what I want. It's about what this means, what people will think, how this changes everything. So you're embarrassed, I say flatly. Embarrassed to tell your sister about us. That's not... He runs a wet hand through his hair in frustration. This isn't just about coming out, Noah. It's about us. About what happens if this doesn't work. About losing my best friend because we couldn't leave well enough alone. Well enough alone? I repeat, incredulous. Is that what you think this is? Some impulsive mistake we could have avoided if we just tried harder? No. He throws up his hands, water droplets flying. But you have to admit, the stakes are higher for me. You've known you were gay since high school. You've had relationships with men. This is all new territory for me. So I am what? Your gay experimental phase? The moment the words leave my mouth, I regret them. Elijah physically recoils as if I've slapped him. That's not what I meant. I backtrack immediately. I'm sorry. But the damage is done. His expression closes off, jaw tightening. Maybe you're right, he says coldly. Maybe this was a mistake after all. He walks out of the kitchen without another word, leaving me standing beside a sink full of soapy water, the hollow victory of having my worst fears confirmed, burning like acid in my throat. I give him space, partly out of respect, partly out of cowardice. I stay at the library until closing, then crash on our friend Miguel's couch rather than face the silence of our apartment. By morning, guilt and longing have overridden pride. I text him a simple message. I'm sorry, can we talk? His reply comes hours later. At class until 4. Then work, home late. The brevity hurts, but I deserve it. I spend the day in a haze of regret, replaying our argument, wishing I could take back words born of insecurity rather than truth. When I finally return to the apartment that evening, I find Elijah sitting on the couch in darkness, staring at nothing in particular. He looks up when I enter but doesn't speak. I hover awkwardly in the entryway, uncertain of my welcome. Can I sit? He nods once, shifting to make room. I settle beside him, careful to maintain a respectful distance. I'm sorry, I say again, meaning it more than ever. What I said was unfair and untrue. I know that's not what this is to you. He's quiet for so long, I wonder if he's going to respond at all. When he finally does, his voice is tired. I'm scared, Noah. I'm terrified, actually. The admission breaks something open between us. I resist the urge to reach for him, giving him space to continue. I've never felt this way about anyone, he says softly. And that would be scary enough if it were some girl I just met. But it's you. He looks at me then, eyes reflecting the faint light from the window. It's you, and that changes everything. Because if we do this, and it falls apart, I don't just lose someone I'm dating. I lose my best friend. I lose the person who knows me better than anyone else in the world. I'm scared too, I admit, for all the same reasons. But you've been sure about who you are for years, he counters. I'm still trying to understand what this means for me. If I'm gay or bi or just whatever this is, Noah sexual. He attempts a weak smile at the joke. You don't need to figure that all out right now, I key gently. Labels can come later or never. What matters is how you feel. That's just it, he says, frustration edging his voice. I know how I feel about you, but I don't know what to do with those feelings. How to navigate this without destroying what we already have. I take a chance and reach for his hand. He doesn't pull away. Maybe we start by being honest with each other and ourselves. He nods slowly. I don't want to hide this, he says after a moment. Not because I'm ashamed, but because it feels private. Sacred, almost, like something that belongs just to us until we figure out what it is. Relief washes through me. I can understand that. But, he continues, squeezing my hand, I also don't want to live in limbo forever. At some point, we need to decide what this is. What we are to each other. What do you want us to be? I ask, heart hammering against my ribs. He's quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then, with determination in his eyes, honest. Whatever else we are, I want us to be honest. It's not the declaration of feelings I might have hoped for, but it's real. And right now, real feels more important than romantic. I can do honest, I say. Good. He shifts closer, the distance between us dissolving. Then, honestly, I'd really like to kiss you right now. My answer is to lean forward, meeting him halfway. The kiss is both an apology and a promise, gentle at first, then deeper as forgiveness flows between us. His hands come up to frame my face, thumbs brushing against my cheekbones with a tenderness that makes my chest ache. When we break apart, he looks at me with naked vulnerability. I've never done this before, he whispers. Been with someone who matters this much. I'm going to mess up sometimes. Me too, I assure him. We'll figure it out together. He smiles, a genuine smile that reaches his eyes, and I feel the tight knot of anxiety in my chest begin to loosen. So, he says, pressing his forehead against mine. Friday dinner with my sister. I'll be there, I promise. As your roommate, your best friend, or whatever you want me to be. He draws back slightly, studying my face. What if I want you to be everything? The words send a shiver through me. Then I'll be everything. Friday dinner with Mia and Jake is easier than expected. We fall into our usual dynamic, Elijah and I finishing each other's sentences, sharing inside jokes, existing in the comfortable synchronicity that's defined our friendship for years. If Mia notices the lingering glances, or the way her brother's hand occasionally brushes mine under the table, she doesn't comment. It's only when Jake goes to the restroom and Mia excuses herself to take a call that Elijah leans over, voice pitched low. Is this okay? Us being us, but not officially us? I look at him, really look at him, at the slight furrow between his brows that appears when he's worried, at the way his eyes search mine for reassurance, at the lips that have become a new landscape I'm learning to navigate. He's scared, I think. So am I. But that doesn't make this any less real. It's okay, I tell him, and mean it. We have time. Relief softens his features. He glances around quickly, then presses a swift kiss to my knuckles before Mia returns. Later that night, after his sister leaves with promises to visit again soon, we find ourselves gravitating toward my bedroom. We've shared dozens of kisses by now, but have carefully avoided taking things further, both of us aware of invisible boundaries neither is quite ready to cross. We lie side by side on my bed, not touching except for our intertwined hands between us. The silence is comfortable, expectant, but not demanding. Noah, Elijah says softly, turning his head to look at me. Can I ask you something? Anything. He hesitates, gathering courage. How long, for you, how long have you felt this way? I consider deflecting or minimizing the truth, but I promised him honesty. 5 years, I admit. In senior year of high school. He inhales sharply. 5 years? All this time? I nod, unable to read his expression in the dimness. That night at Sunset Point, you were laughing at something, and I just knew. Why didn't you ever say anything? He asks, voice barely audible. You were straight, I say simply. Or I thought you were, and our friendship meant too much to risk for something that seemed impossible. He's quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, I'm sorry it took me so long to catch up. You're here now, I say, throat tight with emotion. That's what matters. He shifts onto his side, facing me fully. The streetlight filtering through my curtains illuminates half his face, leaving the other in shadow. If we do this, he says slowly, deliberately, I want it to be real, all of it. The words hang in the space between us, a promise, a question, a leap of faith. I look at him, really look at him. At the boy I've loved since we were 17, now a man asking me to take a chance on something I've wanted, but never truly believed I could have. I don't look away. All of it, I agree. The words a vow. His smile in response is like sunrise breaking over the horizon, gradual, then all at once brilliant and warm. He moves closer, erasing the last distance between us. Outside, the city continues its restless hum. Inside, in the quiet of my bedroom, something new and fragile and infinitely precious takes root between us. We don't know what tomorrow brings. We don't have all the answers or even all the questions yet. But tonight, as Elijah's arms wrap around me and his heartbeat syncs with mine, I allow myself to believe that some risks are worth taking, that some loves are worth the wait, that sometimes in the dark of 3 a.m., whispered words can change everything. Morning arrives with gentle persistence, sunlight filtering through the gaps in my curtains and painting warm stripes across the bed. I wake slowly, disoriented by the unfamiliar weight against my chest, until I remember Elijah. He's still asleep, one arm draped across my torso, his face relaxed in a way it rarely is during waking hours. His breathing comes in steady, even puffs against my collarbone. I allow myself the luxury of watching him, the fan of his eyelashes against his cheeks, the slight part of his lips, the stubble beginning to shadow his jaw. Last night replays in my mind, the vulnerability in his voice when he said he wanted this to be real, the way he held me afterward, neither of us pushing for more, both content to exist in this new space we've created. 5 years of longing, and now he's here, solid and warm against me. It still doesn't feel entirely real. As if sensing my thoughts, Elijah stirs, eyelids fluttering before opening. For a moment, confusion clouds his expression. Then his gaze focuses on me. And something beautiful happens. His entire face softens, a smile blooming slow and sleepy. Hey, he murmurs, voice rough with sleep. Hey yourself, I return, hardly daring to breathe. Unlike our previous morning after, he doesn't pull away, doesn't make excuses to leave. Instead, he burrows closer, nosing at my neck in a gesture so intimate it makes my heart stutter. Time is it? He mumbles against my skin. I glance at the clock on my nightstand. Just after 9. He makes a contented sound. No classes today. No classes, I confirm, tentatively running my fingers through his hair. He leans into the touch like a cat, eyes drifting closed again. Good, he says simply, and just like that, we settle into a new reality. One where waking up together is allowed, where touching is permitted, where the careful distance we've maintained for years dissolves in the quiet of a Saturday morning. We doze for another hour, drifting in and out of consciousness, limbs tangled comfortably. When we finally drag ourselves from bed, there's none of the awkwardness I feared. Instead, we move around each other with the same easy synchronicity we've always had, but now with an added layer of awareness, of permission. Elijah brushes his teeth while I shower. I make coffee while he rummages for breakfast. We orbit each other in familiar patterns, but the gravity between us has shifted, pulling us closer at every turn. A hand at the small of my back as he reaches past me for a mug, my fingers adjusting the collar of his t-shirt, glances that linger without apology. "So," he says eventually, settling across from me at the kitchen table, a bowl of cereal before him. "What now?" It's a loaded question, one I've asked myself 1,000 times over the years. What happens when the impossible becomes possible? Where do we go from here? "Now," I say carefully, "we figure it out. Together." He nods, stirring his cereal thoughtfully. "I want to take you on a date," he announces suddenly, looking up with determination. "A real one, not just hanging out like we always do." The declaration catches me off guard. "You don't have to." "I want to," he interrupts. "If we're doing this, really doing this, I want to do it right." There's something achingly sweet about his insistence, about the way he's throwing himself into this new territory with the same focus he applies to everything that matters to him. "Okay," I agree, unable to suppress my smile. "A date." His answering grin is brilliant, lighting up his entire face. "Tonight, there's that new place on Maple that's supposed to be good." The eagerness in his voice makes my chest tight with affection. "Tonight," I confirm. He reaches across the table to take my hand, thumb brushing over my knuckles. The gesture is simple but deliberate, a claiming, an acknowledgement. "Noah," he says, suddenly serious. "There's something I need you to know." I brace myself, old insecurities rising despite everything. "What is it?" "This isn't..." He pauses, searching for words. "This isn't just experimentation for me. Or curiosity. I need you to believe that." The earnestness in his eyes undoes me. "I believe you," I tell him, squeezing his hand. "Good." He hesitates, then continues. "I can't promise I won't mess up. This is all new to me. But you're not..." He swallows visibly. "You're not some phase I'm going through. You're Elijah and Noah. You've always been." Something warm and expansive blooms in my chest, too big to contain. "Elijah and Noah," I repeat softly. The hyphenation of our names has always been a joke among our friends, how we come as a set, inseparable since high school. But in his mouth now, it sounds like a declaration, like a future. Our first official date is both strange and familiar. Strange to call it a date after years of shared meals and movies. Familiar because it's still us, still the easy conversation and shared jokes that have always defined our relationship. We sit across from each other at a small table in the corner of the restaurant, the soft lighting catching in Elijah's dark hair. He's wearing a blue button-down I've seen 100 times before, but something about the context makes him look different, more vivid somehow, as if I'm seeing him through newly calibrated eyes. "You're staring," he says, the corner of his mouth quirking up. "You look good," I reply honestly. "Blue's always been your color." A faint blush rises on his cheeks, and I'm struck by how novel this is. Elijah Harper, blushing because of something I said. The Elijah I've known for a decade doesn't blush easily. But then again, maybe this is a new Elijah, one who's allowed to be affected by me. "You don't look so bad yourself," he returns, eyes warm with appreciation. Halfway through dinner, as Elijah recounts a story about his impossible engineering professor that has me laughing until my sides hurt, I'm struck by a sudden realization. Nothing fundamental has changed between us. The foundation of our relationship, the friendship, the understanding, the shared history, remains solid. We've simply added new dimensions, new possibilities to something that was already extraordinary. After dinner, we walk home through streets washed silver by moonlight. Elijah's hand finds mine, fingers interlacing with deliberate care. We've walked this route 1,000 times before, but never like this. Never with the permission to touch, to claim, to acknowledge the current that's always run between us. "Good date?" he asks as we approach our building, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. I stop walking, tugging his hand to turn him toward me. "The best," I tell him, meaning it. The smile that breaks across his face is like sunrise. He glances around quickly. The street is empty at this hour, then leans in to kiss me. It's a brief contact, just a press of lips, but performed in the open air rather than the safety of our apartment. A tiny act of courage, Back in the apartment, we move around each other with heightened awareness. The prospect of the night stretching before us carries a new weight, new possibilities that hover unspoken between us. Movie? Elijah suggests, an echo of our usual routine that feels like both an offering and a question. Sure, I agree, grateful for the familiar script, even as I wonder what's changed, what's permitted now. We settle on the couch, the careful distance we begin with quickly evaporating as the movie progresses. By the halfway mark, I'm tucked against Elijah's side, his arm around my shoulders, my head resting in the crook of his neck. When his fingers begin to trace idle patterns on my arm, I look up to find him watching me rather than the screen. There's an intensity in his gaze that steals my breath. I'm not paying attention to this movie at all, he admits, voice low. Me neither, I confess. His hand moves to cup my jaw, thumb brushing over my lower lip with deliberate intent. Noah, he says, my name like a question. I answer by surging up to kiss him, abandoning all pretense of watching the film. The kiss quickly deepens, months of suppressed wanting rising to the surface. His hands are in my hair, on my back, pulling me closer until I'm practically in his lap. When we break apart, both breathing hard, his pupils are blown wide, face flushed. Bedroom? He suggests, voice rough. A thrill runs through me, anticipation mixed with a thread of anxiety. Are you sure? I ask, needing to be certain. We don't have to rush anything. I'm sure, he says firmly, though I can feel the slight tremor in his hands. If you want to, I mean. In answer, I stand, offering my hand. He takes it, allowing me to lead him down the hallway to my room, the same room where he first whispered his question in the dark, where everything changed. What follows is a careful exploration, both of us navigating uncharted territory. Elijah approaches my body with the same focused attention he brings to everything important, learning what makes me gasp, what draws out moans, what causes me to arch up seeking more contact. For my part, I memorize him anew, the dip of his spine, the sensitive spot below his ear, the way his breath hitches when I trail fingers along his inner thigh. Is this okay? He asks repeatedly, checking in with touching consideration. More than okay, I assure him each time. Overwhelmed by the reality of his hands on my skin, his weight pressing me into the mattress. When we finally come together fully, the intensity of it nearly undoes me. Not just the physical pleasure, but the emotional weight of what we're sharing. 5 years of wanting crystallized into this moment, this connection that feels both sacred and inevitable. Afterward, as we lie tangled together, sweat cooling on our skin, Elijah props himself up on one elbow to look at me. His expression is one of wonder and something deeper, something that makes my heart stutter in my chest. You okay? I ask softly, reaching up to brush hair from his forehead. He catches my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm that's so tender it makes my throat tight. I'm perfect, he says. He trails off, swallowing visibly. What? I just keep thinking about all the time we wasted, he admits. All those years when we could have had this. I shake my head slightly. Not wasted, I correct gently. Maybe we needed that time. Maybe we weren't ready before now. He considers this, brow furrowing slightly. Maybe, he concedes. But I can't help thinking about how many times I almost said something. How many times I talked myself out of it because I was scared. You were scared? This is news to me. For how long? He lies back, staring at the ceiling thoughtfully. I don't know exactly. It wasn't like a lightning bolt moment, more like gradually realizing that what I felt for you wasn't what I felt for other friends. He turns his head to look at me. Remember that spring break trip junior year when we drove to the coast? I nod. How could I forget? 3 days in a tiny beach rental, just the two of us, waves crashing outside the window as we stayed up too late talking about everything and nothing. There was this moment, he continues, when you were standing on the shore at sunset. The light was hitting you just right, and I had this thought. I wanted to go to you, to just be closer to you. And then I thought, that's not what friends think about friends. But I pushed it away because it was easier than facing what it might mean. The confession steals my breath. All this time, while I was carefully hiding my feelings, he was wrestling with his own. We really wasted time being idiots, didn't we? I say, trying to keep my tone light, despite the emotion welling in my chest. He laughs softly. Epic idiots, he agrees. Then, more seriously, but we're here now. We're here now, I echo, the simple truth of it overwhelming. He draws me closer, pressing a kiss to my temple. And I'm not going anywhere. The weeks that follow unfold in a series of small revelations and adjustments. We learn new rhythms, when to seek closeness, when to give space, how to navigate the shift from friendship to something more without losing what made us us in the first place. Some things change dramatically. Morning routines now involve stolen kisses over coffee, hands lingering longer than necessary when passing the milk. Movie nights see us tangled together on the couch without pretense, no longer maintaining careful distance. Nights are spent in shared beds rather than separate rooms, learning the language of each other's bodies with increasing fluency. Other things remain beautifully constant. We still bicker over whose turn it is to do the dishes. We still make each other laugh until we can't breathe. We still provide the steady presence that has anchored us both through years of friendship. The first time we hold hands in public, really hold hands, fingers intertwined, walking across campus without hiding. Elijah's palm is sweaty against mine, his knuckles white with tension. But he doesn't let go, even when we pass a group of guys from his engineering program. You didn't have to do that, I tell him afterward, aware of what the gesture cost him. Yes, I did, he says simply. I'm not ashamed of this, Noah, of us. We tell our friends gradually, not making a grand announcement, but simply stopping the pretense that we're just roommates. Miguel figures it out first, catching us kissing in the kitchen during a party at our apartment. About damn time, is all he says, raising his beer in a casual toast before wandering back to the living room. Elijah's sister Mia calls after seeing a photo he posted on Instagram, the two of us at the beach, his arm around my waist, my head on his shoulder, unmistakably a couple. You couldn't have mentioned this during dinner last month? She demands, though there's no heat in her voice. We were still figuring things out, he tells her, then adds with surprising confidence, but we're good now, really good. Only his parents remain in the dark, a fact that weighs on him more heavily as the semester progresses. I should tell them, he says one night as we lie in bed, his head on my chest, before they visit for graduation. Only if you're ready, I caution, running fingers through his hair. There's no timeline you have to follow. He's quiet for a moment, thinking. I want them to know, he says finally. I want them to know you. The real you, not just my roommate and best friend. 2 days later, I find him sitting on our couch, phone clutched in his hand, face pale. I did it, he says when he sees me. I called my mom. I'm by his side in an instant. How did it go? She was surprised, he admits. But not angry. She said she needs time to process, but that she loves me no matter what. He swallows hard. And she asked if you make me happy. My heart stutters. What did you say? A smile breaks through his nervousness. I told her, you always have. It's not all easy. We fight sometimes about dirty dishes left in the sink, about time management, about the future looming beyond graduation, and sometimes, in darker moments, about the nature of what we are to each other. Are you sure about this? I ask during one such moment, old insecurities surfacing after Elijah mentions an ex-girlfriend in passing. About us? Frustration flashes across his face. How many times do I have to tell you? Yes, I'm sure. This isn't some experiment, Noah. This is my life. Life. But you never even looked at guys before me. I persist, the fear that has haunted me since our first kiss rising to the surface. What if you wake up one day and realize this was just... Just what? He interrupts, anger edging his voice. Just a phase, just confusion. When are you going to trust that I know what I want? I do trust you, I insist. I just don't want you to regret. The only thing I regret, he cuts in, is every day I wasted not being with you because I was too scared to admit what I felt. His anger softens, replaced by something more vulnerable. I love you, Noah. I'm in love with you. Has been for longer than I was willing to admit, even to myself. The declaration hangs in the air between us, the first time either of us has said the words aloud. My breath catches, the world narrowing to just his face, his eyes wide with the shock of his own admission. You love me? I ask, voice barely a whisper. Of course I do, he says, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world. How could I not? I cross the room in 3 steps, pulling him into a kiss that contains all the words I haven't said, all the years of wanting, all the certainty I feel about us despite my fears. I love you too, I breathe against his lips when we part. God, Elijah, I've loved you for so long. Later, tangled together in the aftermath of reconciliation, he traces idle patterns on my skin. Move in with me, he says suddenly. After graduation, let's get a place together, a real place, not just another student apartment. We already live together, I point out, amused. You know what I mean, he says, propping himself up to look at me. A place that's ours from the beginning. Not as roommates or friends, but as us. The implication steals my breath. A future together, deliberate and chosen. Are you sure? I ask, one last time. In answer, he reaches over to his nightstand, retrieving something from the drawer. He places a small box between us on the mattress. What's this? I ask, heart suddenly racing. Open it, he urges. Inside is a key, new and shiny, attached to a keychain with the coordinates of Sunset Point engraved on a silver disc. I already found a place, he admits, a hint of nervousness in his voice. It's a little farther from downtown, but it has that big kitchen you've always wanted, and the rent is reasonable. And there's this amazing view from the bedroom that reminded me of where I first realized I... He breaks off, suddenly uncertain. Is it too much? Too fast? I close my fingers around the key, emotion welling in my throat. It's perfect, I manage. It's exactly enough. Relief breaks across his face, followed by a smile so bright it rivals the sun. He pulls me close, pressing his forehead to mine. No more wasted time, he whispers. Just us from now on. Just us, I agree, the simple promise containing multitudes. Outside, the city continues its restless hum. Inside, in the quiet of our shared space, I hold the physical manifestation of our future in my palm, a small metal key that somehow contains all the weight and wonder of what we've become, what we're still becoming. 5 years ago, sitting on the hood of Elijah's car at Sunset Point, I had my first moment of terrible, wonderful clarity about how I felt for him. I remember thinking, this is a problem. Now, wrapped in his arms, his heartbeat steady against mine, I have a different thought. This is home. Not the apartment we share or the new place waiting for us after graduation, but this. The space we've created between us. The trust, the knowing, the love that grew quietly for years before blooming in the whispered dark of a 3 a.m. confession. Some journeys are measured not in miles, but in moments, in quiet admissions and careful touches, in bridges crossed and barriers fallen. In the courage it takes to whisper a question in the dark, uncertain of the answer, but asking anyway. If I could go back to that night, to the precise moment when Elijah asked if I would stop him, I wouldn't change a thing. Not the years of waiting, not the fear or uncertainty, not the careful dance we performed around each other before finally finding our way here. Because some loves are worth the wait. Some questions deserve to be asked, even in the dark, even when you're afraid of the answer. And sometimes, at 3 a.m., with your best friend beside you and your heart in your throat, you discover that the greatest leap of faith isn't falling in love. It's believing that you're worthy of being loved in return. That night, Elijah took that leap. And every day since, we've been falling together. Not towards something, but into each other. Into the future we're building word by word, touch by touch, moment by precious moment. Into the certainty that whatever comes next, we face it together. Elijah and Noah. Noah and Elijah. Us.